on yourself, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you do what is right for your body, for your energy field, and for where you are now. For some people, that might mean eating meat. For some people, that might mean being vegan. And both of those people need to accept that the other is where exactly they need to be. Start to move in the direction of championing a cause such as veganism or fighting against deforestation or whatever your cause is that you really are passionate about. I'm going to give you 3 ways to move towards this without wasting your time fighting other people, being angry, and generally tanking your own energy. Welcome to the Akashic Recordings. I'm Annette Dalloo, Akashic conduit, channel, and spiritual guidance coach. I want to thank you for joining me today. The Akashic Recordings is created through the cooperation of my clients who have agreed to have their sessions recorded. Of course, with their permission, I am able to share these beautiful sessions with you. If you are interested in booking a session with me, you can go to my website at infinitesoullove.com. So tell me, what do you want to cover today?
I've always been a staunch supporter of animal nature rights and welfare and all of that. I've been, as you know, a vegetarian for almost 40 years. But suddenly I got to the point where my sensitivity to animal welfare and even plants and trees got really heightened and increased. To the point where we'd be going to a restaurant and my son and daughter were eating meat and I was physically sick. It's like someone had dialed up what had always been, but made it to the point where it was just almost, as I said, really physically difficult for me now to eat and to do this kind of thing. So I'm really, really interested. I discussed it in my friend Chris's group, the online community that I belong to, and it was really interesting because it stirred a whole conversation about veganism, and how to eat meat still when you're eating it, and it really triggered me to start with until I understood a little bit better that I'm here to really launch this subjects that are like time bombs, and just explode and get everyone to discuss. But there is a sense that this heightened sensitivity is linked maybe to my heart energy increasing and opening up. It feels like it's part of my journey, and I don't know what role it's going to play. But anyway, I was interested in that subject and I just thought I would mention it. Other subject that has come through as well is how I have gone through periods where I felt very much a starseed and I was very much into all of the lineage and ancestry. Then that period ended and then I got into elementals and dived deep into that as well. The other day, it sort of suddenly felt that the two were blending in. And I got much more of a sense that they come from the same place. I mean, we all come from the stars, and it's really interesting that the two are blending in now. And again, I'm curious as to why I'm suddenly getting this download and this insight. So if the guys think that I need to know about something else, then so be it.
Beautiful. Just as a small caveat to the veganism, vegetarian question, I'm going to be very curious to find out this information myself, because I don't think you're alone in the heightened sensitivity to animal products. My whole life, I've been sort of not really into meat. Like I've not really liked it, but I still eat it every once in a while. So I've always considered myself sort of like 80% vegetarian and 20% not, right? I would probably eat meat maybe once every month or so. I would eat eggs, I would eat cheese, that kind of stuff. Well, over the course of the last several years, like I've had various sensitivities to dairy, to animal products, to all kinds of things. And so I've kind of gotten that a little bit under control, but then recently, only in the last, I would say, several months, that every time I eat meat, I take one bite, I take a second bite, and then by the third bite, it literally tastes like death. Like I can taste the death and I can't eat it anymore. It's interesting because I had gone to the doctor and the doctor was like, she was a nutritionist and she's like, look, you're completely vitamin deficient. Like you need to start eating meat. So I took that month and I tried. I tried to eat meat. I tried to eat seafood. Even with seafood, it was doing it to me and I couldn't do it. I don't think that this is just you. I think that the energy has sort of been turned up overall on certain types of people, maybe certain energies. So we'll definitely dive into that and ask the guides, like, what is going on and why is this happening? And what is it that we need to do? Like, what is it that we're being called to do? Right?
How interesting.
Yeah, it is. I've actually had other friends who have had very similar experiences. So your third eye is telling me that you want to see more and more and more and more and more. And it's almost like you're getting a tiny bit ahead of yourself. So you want to see a lot more. You want to experience a lot more than you currently are. And they're saying in time, it'll take a little bit more time for you to get to where you really know that you want to be. And it's like you already can see it. You want to be there now. And they're saying, just be patient. It's coming. It's just, you need to be able to go through the steps that you need to take to actually get there. We're going to take a look at one of the past lives that is having an effect on your communication, your throat chakra. And it's not a major thing in any way, but what it's doing is it's creating a little bit of a distorted energy. And how can I describe this? Well, when we dive in, it'll be much more clear. But when you were talking to me about how you were on these groups and you feel like you're here to put a torpedo into these groups and say, here's a bomb. This is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on. That is part of what you are meant to do in a way. But the energy that you're doing it in is going to shift and change drastically. It'll be the difference between like dropping a bomb and being a lighthouse. One is actively seeking to disrupt. The other one is actively shining for others to see when they're ready. And that's going to be the key because you're rapidly growing and integrating and realizing so many things that other people are not ready to connect with yet. And one of those things is, just as an example, is when you were talking about how you used to connect with the starseed and now you were connecting with elementals and then now you're feeling like it's all just the same thing.
Yeah.
That is an evolution and a realization that you make that is essentially, well, I'm part of divine source energy. I broke off from divine source energy to have these experiences. I have been a starseed. I have been an elemental. Those have been parts of who I have been as a soul. It is not who I am. It is an experience that I've had. You're making this realization. So understanding that you don't need to identify as a starseed. You don't need to identify as an elemental or as a fairy or as anything, because that is just one of the things that you have been in your past. And a lot of people are not ready to let go of the identifiers that they have that define them as a Pleiadian, as a starseed, as a whatever they want to identify as. And it's not to say that they're not those things. It's that they are those things and they are everything else. The communication portion is going to be important for you moving forward, and they're going to unfold a lot of that for you later on in the session so you can understand why it's important for you to be able to communicate in a way that is in a space that is allowing the experience that the other person needs to have. So if the other person needs to be triggered, cool, that's awesome. They'll be triggered. If the other person needs to be enlightened and move forward, that's awesome too. But that's not your energy to decide, obviously, what their experience is going to be. Mm-hmm. And that's not something you're doing now. It's just for your knowledge that when you do go on these sort of quests, if you will, to inform, there is a slight energy shift that needs to happen. And it is based on this previous lifetime that we'll look at.
Fascinating. That feels really good.
Good. Thank you to Akula, my Akashic Guide. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon for being here as well, allowing us access to the Akashic Records. Today we are opening up the Akashic Records. Thank you. Let's see where we need to go first. We're going to go to the throat chakra first. Okay. They want to make it clear that they understand that when you communicate this information currently, the way that you're doing it now, you're not doing it in an energy that is combative or that is wrong in any way. They want to make that clear. There is a slight shift and a difference in the way in which you align your energy before you create the communication. And what they're showing me is that whatever happened in this past life is almost like an overlay. It's like superimposing over your voice, meaning that you are communicating from the heart. You're communicating from your place now. And then there's this past life version of you that's kind of overlaying onto it. That's creating this shift and this change in the energy. So once we're able to clear this, it should be able to allow you to then move forward in an energy that is fully aligned. Okay, so let's dive into that previous lifetime. It's your divine masculine within you. Okay, got it. They're saying to me that this particular lifetime that we're looking at right now, it was a lifetime in which you incarnated as a man, and it had been a while since you had incarnated as a man. Like it had been several lifetimes, in fact. And so you had gone through some various incarnations as a woman and had dealt with oppression and abuse and all kinds of things. And so that feeling of not being able to speak, not being able to be heard and listened to was really palpable in a lot of ways in these previous lifetimes that you had experienced. In this lifetime that you decided, okay, I'm going to take a break from that for a minute and I'm going to go and incarnate as a man and I'm going to work on another piece that my soul wants me to work on. The second you started sort of becoming an adult, so I'm seeing like early adulthood, maybe late teens, early 20s, and you are on top of the world. You're like, oh my gosh, I speak and people listen to me. Oh my gosh, I tell people something and they do it. Oh my gosh, everybody's doing everything I'm telling them to do. This is amazing. And your voice started to really grow and your ability to communicate actually got really great. Like you started voicing your opinions, you started voicing all of the things that you wanted to voice. And this was a unique period of time for you because even though you were working on other things in this particular lifetime as a man, you were working on alchemy with the trauma you had experienced in previous lifetimes. You were trying to transmute that energy, change the way in which you were approaching the lessons. You were changing the way in which you were approaching the scenarios to remember the trauma that you had experienced as a woman. And this was happening all over, where you would go somewhere and you would see a woman being beaten by her husband and you would want to step in. You would see somebody being cruel to a child and you would want to step in. It was almost as if you had given yourself a superpower by being a man in this life. Because had you been a woman, you would still have gotten the same experiences or similar experiences from the collective, which is being oppressed, being looked down upon, things like that. And so incarnating as a man, you were like, wow, this is crazy easy. Like, how is this so easy? Well, it wasn't just the fact that you were a man. You did incarnate in this lifetime. I don't want to call it a vacation lifetime, but almost like a vacation lifetime. It was a little bit of a break for you. The problem is that you were not necessarily protecting yourself energetically because you were so happy and thrilled to be able to be seen and heard and understood that you just kept on. I mean, the analogy they're giving me is that you would run around and just like keep on kicking hornets' nests. Like you were really making a lot of people angry by
stirring people and just really Yeah.
Even though you were absolutely in the right to stand up for these people who could not stand up for themselves, you were creating this tension between you and the other people in the city where you lived. I'm seeing there was one point in time where a few of the men got together and followed you home and basically beat you up. I'm seeing, okay. That did not stop you in any way. The next piece I'm seeing is like you're standing on the steps of a church. If you're standing on the top of the steps, like you're sort of standing over the crowd, right? So you start shouting from the steps of the church and you start basically, I'm hearing the words like pontificating. You basically are saying, do you see my face? You see the bruises and the cuts on my face? This is the work of a bunch of cowards. And you just started calling out these people left and right, telling people like how cowardly they were and what types of people they were. And this guy beats his wife and this guy beats his kids. And you laid it all out there. One of the wives is in the crowd and she's looking at you like, please don't say this. Please don't do this. And the energy that I'm getting from her is like, you're making things worse. You're making things worse for me. Mm-hmm. So there's a priest inside the church. He hears the commotion. He comes to the stairs where you are. He asks you to come inside the church. You've riled up the crowd pretty good. I mean, they're all shouting and kind of angry at what has been happening behind closed doors in certain places with certain people. And you were really beloved in the city. So like to see you beaten up, like people were quite angry at that as well. So the priest pulls you into the church and he says to you, there are ways that you can help, but this is not the way. This is not a way that's going to help. And you don't understand why the priest is saying this because you're like, why is he trying to silence me? Was this priest, did he have good intentions? He did. Okay. So they're showing me he had been working with that one particular wife. He had been working with her for many, many weeks, helping her, counseling her. He's saying to you that it takes a softer touch. You can't force people to do things that they don't want to do. You can't force people to be something that they are not. You can't force a violent man to be peaceful. It is just not something you can do. You cannot force justice. You are also not the judge of another person's experience. So you got really frustrated. I mean, you understood what the priest was saying. You did understand it. But you got really frustrated because you were basically saying, but what can I do then? I'm sitting here and I'm not doing anything. Like I have to do something. I have to help in some way. I have to make a change and make a difference in some way. So you really tried to think of ways in which you could help create change, and you were really struggling with how to do that. And part of that had to do with the fact that like these previous incarnations that you had where you had been victim of abuse and where you had these experiences, you didn't know how to get out of those even then. Your soul's experience has not at this point had an experience where you know how to get out of those particular types of situations, where you know how to, no matter what, stand up for yourself, walk away, do what you need to do. And it wasn't really the right time either, because back then, had you, let's say, started helping some of the wives or the children or anyone that was having these types of issues, it would be seen as really inappropriate for you to be able to speak to a woman on her own, just by yourself, like you and her, especially if she was married, or if you were to try to speak to a child that wasn't yours. In this particular period of time, in this place, it just would never be acceptable. It would never be accepted. And so you were quite limited in that lifetime as to how you could affect change and how you could actually move forward. So in this particular lifetime, you never did find a way that was acceptable to you and to your conscience. So you did continue to sort of be the town crier, if you will. You did basically still call things out. You tried to do it in a less shouty, like harsh way, but you were still doing it because you're like, well, it has to be done. It has to be seen. Like this can't keep on continuing without anybody taking responsibility for what they're doing. What they want you to connect to in this previous lifetime is the idea that at this time, this version of you didn't have the opportunities, the tools, the platform to be able to affect change in a really meaningful and rich way. It was almost as if in this previous lifetime, all you had at your disposal were just blunt tools. In your current incarnation, you have any number of very fine, very precise tools. So anytime you are, let's say, about to drop a torpedo on something, I want you to imagine this previous version of yourself. And I want you to think about, is this me just shouting from the rooftops? Or is there a different way that I could go about this in the energy that I'm in? One of the ways in which you can go about this is, especially in communities, online communities, is to just simply talk about your experience. It's a slight shift in how you deliver the information. I want you to feel into right now how it would feel to really connect to the information that you want to share with people. And this could be online, this could be with your business, this could be any way you share information. And I want you to imagine that your heart is just beaming and open. Your throat chakra is just beaming and open. And you're sharing your story, your knowledge, your tools. It is a version of energy that is really almost 50-50 in its divine feminine and divine masculine nature, because you are putting it out there. So that is a taking action of sorts. But then you are just leaving it open for whoever is going to connect to the information to connect to it. And if they are triggered by it, that's fine. If they are loving the information, that's fine too. So whatever their experience is, that's their experience. But you're here to basically say, here, this is what I've learned. This is the tool that I have. This is what my experience has been. Do with it what you will.
And I think I've already done that, actually. I think I've already come to that conclusion. It's interesting. There were a couple of things that I was nodding wildly whilst you were talking about that previous life. I loved the concept of the black sheep, which I still very much feel like in this lifetime. So this less so now than I used to when I was younger, but of being really different and looking at the world with very different eyes from everyone else. Mm-hmm. What really resonated also is like the struggling to find ways to create change. This is where my emotion become really heightened, because there is a sense of powerlessness to effect change when it comes to animal welfare and looking after the trees and the land, and trying to channel these very hard-based emotions and as in the best way, really, to open people's awareness, to bring transformation in whatever way I can. And it's interesting because when we were talking about veganism in this online community, that's what I ended up feeling when everyone came back and shared their experience. After I got a little bit triggered and came back and gave more arguments as to why you should become vegan, and then I let go of that, and everyone came back and said, you know what? I'm not ready. One said, I'm not ready because I need to do that. But you made me think. And I realized that actually exactly what you said. It's for me to bring really my very own personal experience and choose the best tools and then allow that experience to be received in whatever ways will be most aligned with the other person's path. So it makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the thing is that you can also tank your own energy with going through all of the atrocities that happen on this planet, right? So you could start with the veganism. You could start with, okay, how cruel they treat the animals in the farming industry. Then all of a sudden you could go into, oh, well, what about all the slave labor that happens overseas with the cheap fashion that everybody buys and wears? Okay, so then let's get into deforestation. Okay, let's get into that. There are endless numbers of things that happen on this planet that we can champion for.
Yeah.
The question is it your position, talent, job, sole purpose to do these things, right? And there are certain people where this is their sole purpose, that they are here to fight against. They are here to champion. They are here to shake things up. And that is their purpose. That isn't your purpose, though. Now, it's not to say that you can't do it. It is about the amount that you take on. So if this was your purpose, let's say, if this was your incredible life purpose for this lifetime, you would have been given the tools from a very early age to be very well connected to governments, to be connected to, let's say, policymakers, to be connected to the people that you need to connect to in order to try to change these things from the inside out. But what you can do from your individual standpoint is obviously make all of your decisions that you want to make for your life that will contribute to the well-being of animals. You can also use that beautiful divine energy that you have, that alchemy energy that you have, to be able to send love to those animals, send love to those farmers, send love to the manufacturers and all of the chains along the way, to start affecting the energy that is continuing to perpetuate in those industries. The other thing that you can do, like you said, is lead by example. I completely understand the not ready to be vegan, because I knew that it was something that maybe I would be moving towards. And this was years ago, but I was like, oh God, I don't know if I could ever give up cheese. Like, I don't know that that's something I could ever do. And the funny thing is the universe steps in and goes, oh, well, here, cheese is not going to agree with your body. How do you feel about it now?
It's fantastic, because, and to me, just for say, you were saying, oh, I'm trying meat again, and like the first mouthful, the second, the third mouthful, it tastes like death. For me, I see meat and I see the live animal that was there. Just cannot do it. And it's the same thing with cutting down trees, doing all sorts of things. Someone I was having a debate with in this online community said to me, well, what about the mass production of quinoa and how it's bringing death to all sorts of other natural wild herbs and plants, because it's the system at the moment. And I thought, yes, she's right. There's different levels. Obviously, to me, there's the animals as sentient beings. There's the trees that I feel a lot of life force. And then you get down to the plant and the flowers levels. It's really fascinating. And thank you, because I need to feel that there is something that I can contribute and that I can do. And I do know that I am not here to do activism in the sense of out in the field. And I've known this for a long time. I do feel that my business in some ways has a role to contribute in that as well. So
absolutely. Well, and that's the other thing too, is that if you wanted to donate a portion of your profits to an organization that you really believe in, that's another way to do it too.
Yeah.
I went through this in the US when I was living there when it came to politics. I was incredibly politically active when I was younger. My dad was politically active. He really taught me the importance of government, obviously, given the fact that my father came from Iraq. He knew the importance of government and the importance of the freedom that you have to vote and the freedom that you have to affect change in the place that you live. So it was something I was incredibly passionate about when I was younger. And I would volunteer for Obama's campaign. I would do all sorts of knocking door to door, trying to get people to vote in whichever way they were going to vote. It didn't matter, but just get out and vote. And it got to the point where it started to really affect my energy, because I would get so riled up and so angry at some of the things that people were saying and the division and all of it. It was just so polarizing and so awful. And people were saying awful things to each other based on things that don't even affect their own life. And I'm like, okay, I need to do something right now, because it's affecting my energy. I took a step back and I said, okay, what can I do now to not be so riled up, angry, fighting energy, like all of that energy? What can I do? And this was before I even had my spiritual awakening. Basically, it was the removal of myself from all of it. So basically, I removed myself I stopped watching the news. I stopped listening to a lot of the programs that would sort of rile people up, because they do it on all the sides, all the political sides. They try to rile you up and peddle the fear. I started removing myself from that. And then I decided, okay, what is it that I can do? Okay, well, basic thing. I can vote. Okay, cool. I can do that. If I want to work for a campaign or if I want to help out, I can do that. Or I can donate money and just not be involved in the whole vitriol of the whole thing. And to a point where, as opposed to every day, my heart racing because I was so angry at everything that was going on and the atrocities that were happening, to me being at peace every single day, knowing that, you know what, I don't have to fight every fight.
Mm-hmm.
I can fight the fights that I need to. And I can do the work that I can to make the world a better place, but I can do this in a way that is aligned for me and my talents and what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just going to rile yourself up, make you angry and tank your energy for really no reason.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Because being angry and riled up at something, does it actually help the animals?
No, it doesn't. No.
Not at all.
No.
And actually, in fact, the opposite. Like if you're in your beautiful, yummy, divine energy, you can send that beautiful, yummy, divine energy to those animals.
Yes.
I was on a road trip in France several years back, and I don't know, I think they've outlawed them, or they're starting to outlaw them now, but France is notorious for having these really awful traveling circuses.
Yeah.
And I've seen the way that they treat the animals, and it's not great. And so I saw, like, on the side of the road, there were all these signs for this traveling circus. And I knew, because I've seen in passing, like I've seen them. And I'm like, so all I did was I sent beautiful energy to those animals. And I asked my angels and asked the divine to find a way to get all of those animals new homes in as soon as possible. And so they can orchestrate whatever situation they want to orchestrate, meaning my angels, meaning the divine, in order to get those animals into a place that they are happy, that they are well cared for. And that's what I did. And do I know that that happened? No, but I trust enough that it did.
Yeah. I've had that discussion with Chris, my German friend, and she said, what you can do is you can bless, like if you still ate meat, which obviously I can't and I haven't done for 40 years, so I'm not about to start again, but I bless the animal, and so that their life, their death in particular wasn't. I can't do that at this point of time. I can't bless the death that I think was unnecessary. But I can certainly thank my food, the vegetables, the fruits, and the sun and the rain that helped grow them, and I can really direct my energy towards, for example, agroforestry. You grow vegetables and fruits, but in a natural environment of the forest, and I can really direct my energy towards trying to bring this kind of, and I've watched documentary where they really encourage all sorts of plants that will attract bees, will attract insects, and they manage the land in a way. So to me, that would be a really productive way that I don't deplete my energy and I don't get myself really distressed and very sad. So that would be a productive way. Yeah.
And I'm also I'm going to tap into the guides, and we're going to channel a little message about like the energies and why the energy of that has become so strong. I also am feeling guided to mention that if somebody is out there that does eat meat though, and you come across them, it is not for you to judge them for eating meat. Yeah. And I know that's a hard thing to stomach because you're trying to affect that change. It is very similar to that past life where it's like, it is not your job to prevent that woman from being beaten by her husband. You can't stand in that house every single day and stop that fist from hitting her face.
Yeah.
It is about doing the things that you can do as opposed to trying to control the things you can't.
Yeah, but that's interesting because I did that quite happily for years and years and years. My husband was still eating meat and cooking meat at home for the kids, and I didn't like it. But as I said, the switch suddenly has gone where it's a lot harder.
Okay. So I'm actually going to take a look at what that switch is and why a lot of us are feeling that feeling. So give me a second. I'm just going to go into a channel. What's happening right now in terms of the energy is the combination of rising the energy on the earth, on the planet, as well as within yourselves. That is something that you already know. You already know that the higher the energy rises, the less likely you are going to be drawn to things that are in lower energy. Now, it's not to say that consuming animals in general is lower energy. Consider the Native Americans, consider other indigenous cultures who have hunted over the course of centuries, and every single time they hunt, they bless the animal, they thank the animal for the sacrifice. The way in which it is done is with reverence. The way that it is done within the realm of the circle of life. The animal has a chance on a soul level to agree to this exchange. Back then, in the older times, the amount of meat that was eaten was a lot less. There were less people on the planet. There was less need for the amount of food as you need now on this planet. It is not about eating meat necessarily. It is about the way in which the meat is acquired. When it comes to the practices now on this planet, yes, we would consider it to be cruel, but you also have to understand that the collective soul of the animal understands what is happening, understands that the sacrifice that it is making right now is one that will course correct over time. You may be mourning the individual death of a cow or a pig or a chicken, but we want you to be in a place of understanding that that is a collective soul. For all the chickens, all the cows, all the meat that you eat, it all has a collective soul. These particular animals are not individualized like your individual pets that you have at home that have started breaking off from the collective soul. That doesn't mean that it's any less impact. It just says that the individual impact is having an effect on the whole and the collective of the soul. There is collective trauma within that soul, just like there is collective trauma with all women or men who have been abused. There is a disconnect with how humans are moving forward in their day-to-day lives. This is forcing you to connect to your food, to heighten sensitivity. It's forcing you to understand the connection you have, not only to your food, but to the things that you use on a daily basis. We guided Annette to a meditation this morning. It is a meditation by Louise Hay. She was delighted to hear it. It was helping her in what she's working through right now. It is a very simple meditation that thanks the couch you sit on every day, the computer, the TV that you watch, the refrigerator, the electricity, the stove that you have in your house, the bed that you lay on every night. Having the gratitude for the energy of all of the things that are in your life, sending them blessings, sending them beautiful energy. This can uplift any situation significantly. People have gotten out of the habit of blessing their food. This is something that we handed down multiple centuries ago. It got attached to religion, and that's okay because it stuck for a long time because of that. But now that for some people, religion has ceased to be something that is important in their life, we encourage you to keep those practices that have been handed down and modify them to your current energetic signature. So whichever way you want to bless your food, do it. Whichever way you want to bless everything that you will, in fact, buy. One of the things that happened in this meditation this morning for Annette was she realized that she can bless the place that she is going to buy her food. She can bless everything along that chain. And if everybody does this, it will affect the change. You will not see it immediately, but you will see the change that will happen. This is the way to do it with love. We are not here to say that you must be vegan, you must be vegetarian, you must be a meat eater, you must be a pescatarian. All of these labels that you put on yourself, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you do what is right for your body, for your energy field, and for where you are now. For some people, that might mean eating meat. For some people, that might mean being vegan. And both of those people need to accept that the other is where exactly they need to be. So right now, you are in a place where it's making you feel ill to be around it even. So we want you to connect to that feeling, that energy, that animal, energy. And I want you to ask it what it needs. If it needs some love and blessings, send it. That is what it's asking of you. It's not asking you to fight. It's asking for attention. And it's time for you to give that attention in the form of your beautiful alchemy that you have. This is the important work that you can do to help affect this change. Amazing. Thank you. Is there anything else? Not at this time. Okay. Any questions?
No, that made complete and utter sense. And I just love, because I think the alchemy and the transmuting of the energy and is something that is deeply wired in me. So it just makes complete sense that I would use it also to help, in what I'm deeply passionate about. And for me, when you tap into the collective soul of animals and of the land and all of that, you can imagine people overall eating less meat, and the 75% of the farmed land that is devoted to feeding the animals that we slaughter. You can imagine that little by little, some of this land is rewilded and taken back to, and when it's got that beautiful energy of growth and love and blessings and peace, spreading. So that's a lovely way to do it.
Yes, absolutely. It's funny because you've given me a message too earlier when you were saying like, you have to thank the rain because the rain comes and waters the fields.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know this, but I've been railing against all the rain here in Paris because it's just constant and it makes me very sad. And so in the Louise Hay meditation I listened to, that's one of the things that she was saying was like, thank the rain and thank the sun, thank both. I was like, you know what? That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. I need to stop hating the rain, even though I think for me personally, I need to live in a place that has more sun, but still for the time being and where I am at this current moment, I can thank the rain for all of its abundance that it gives us.
That makes complete sense. Thanks, my love. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Once again, I would like to thank Flora for allowing me to record her session and share all of these beautiful intuitions and insights with all of you. Welcome back, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was a really incredible session, not only for Flora, but for me as well, because this is a really important topic to talk about in terms of transcending duality. Now, I have struggled, as you heard in the session, with having my body specifically react to certain things that I eat, certain environments. And that's really common to have happen on your spiritual journey. But what about other external forces, like conflict having to do with politics, or conflict having to do with feeling really powerless over what is happening within your environment? So today, I'm going to give you 3 really clear steps as to how you can move forward in beautifully loving energy, remove the stress of all of that fight energy, and actually start making a difference in this world if this is what you feel called to do. Now, I want to stress that it's about if you feel called to do it. If you're not feeling called to do it, you can get involved in other ways. As I mentioned in this session, you can donate money to a particular cause that you really love. You can make guided action yourself, but you don't necessarily need to join in the championing of a particular cause if that's not your sole purpose. I'm going to start off by saying, first, every single human on this planet and every single being on this planet signs up for certain experiences. And so stepping out of the judgment of those experiences is going to help you immensely. If you can remove the judgment of another's experience and understand that they are having this experience for a reason, whether it's for their soul growth, whether it's for somebody else's soul growth, you don't know what the story is. And for you to judge somebody else's journey without knowing the full story is essentially spinning your wheels and lowering your energy and making you angry for pretty much no reason. The first step is to take a step back and send loving energy. So a really good example of this is right now. I know in the US, there's a lot of duality going on with the elections coming up. And it doesn't matter what side you're on. And if you're practicing what we're talking about here, you won't actually have a side. You are on the side of love. You are on the side of acceptance. You are on the side of understanding that everybody has their own particular journey to go on. Is there a side of moral right? I mean, yes. Of course, there is a side of people who lead with their heart and who want to spread love and acceptance. And there is the side that is spreading fear and hatred. And there are people on all sides of political spectrums that are doing that. It's not just one side or the other. Whatever side you happen to identify with, if you still identify with a side, I want you to imagine sending love to the people that you are having anger about, the people who you are stressing out about. Send love to them, because oftentimes when people are fighting and when they're angry, it is because they're feeling like they are not being heard. It is that version of their little inner child screaming to be heard. So the first way that we can really affect change is to send that loving energy. Number 2 is to take guided action. What does that mean? Well, it's going to mean something different for everyone. Everyone's going to take guided action in a different way. Maybe your form of guided action is to do something that is heart-led. Let's take veganism as an example from this session. If, let's say, you are a vegan and you want to really champion for the welfare of animals, then maybe you can donate to animal shelters. Maybe you can donate to organizations that help with lobbying for sustainable food. Or maybe you can find other ways to get involved, volunteering, things like that. That is the positive guided action. Getting onto social media and arguing with people about why they need to be vegan is not the way, as we saw in this session. When it comes to anything, you cannot convince another person to do something that you want them to do. That is a control protocol. That is old, distorted energy. So what do you do instead? You lead by example. You lead by example by taking this guided action. And by guided action, I mean that you go within, you connect to your intuition. You look into your heart and ask your heart what it is that you feel guided to do. Now, the one thing I want to be very clear about in terms of this guided action is that guided action can change on a regular basis. And I'm going to use my example of sort of where my journey is in terms of food, because when I recorded this session with Flora, I was in a place where I really could not eat meat. Like I couldn't stomach it. I couldn't taste it. It was awful to me. But now I'm in a place where I can eat meat. I don't eat it often still, but every once in a while I am eating it. And this is for my own health, because I was very vitamin deficient. I was having some health issues. And so for me, my body needed it. And there are people out there who actually do need meat. They need it for their health. And so until there is some sort of technology or some sort of change in the way that we get our nutrients, there are still going to be people who are going to need animal products in their life. Okay? Every body is different. And I mean every body is different. So there are some people that will thrive being vegan. And there are many people who do. But there are others that don't. Taking the judgment out of what every person's experience is, first step. Second step, guided action. Listen to what your internal guidance is telling you. And here's the third step. Get rid of all of your labels. Now, this might seem really, really scary. Okay, I'll use some of mine as an example. I would identify myself in America in the political system as a liberal or as a Democrat. And I would identify myself as a sci-fi geek. I would identify myself as somebody who is on the spiritual journey. I would identify myself as XYZ. Whatever your labels you have put yourself into, start stripping those away because the labels are only serving to limit you. Can you identify with some of those ideals in some of those places? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But you don't have to stay there. So for me, I don't think I'm ever going to identify as 100% vegan or 100% vegetarian or yes, I'm a meat eater. I always say, I'm kind of like, let's say 90% vegetarian, 10% meat eating, right? Or I am 30% vegan, 60% vegetarian, and that other 10% I eat whatever I want, right? And that works for me. Why do I have to put a label on myself? Why do I have to say, oh, I'm vegan or I'm vegetarian in order to make myself feel better? I don't need to, okay? If you're feeling guided that you need to be vegan, such as Flora did, and she has been for 40 years, that's beautiful. That's great. But the thing is that the label, it just doesn't matter. This is just a choice that she's making. This is something that she's feeling guided to do. So it has absolutely nothing to do with whatever the label means. It has to do with her internal guidance. It has to do with her internal compass. I encourage you to get rid of the labels you put on yourself because basically the only thing that they are doing is limiting you. It's limiting you to what you can do, to what you can expand to what you can experience. When you remove these labels and when you are able to be fluid in this energy of what it is that you want to do and what you're feeling guided to do, this allows you to much more easily ignore the negativity and just not have it touch your life in any way. So for me personally, I don't watch the news. I basically stay out of it almost entirely. I'll dip in occasionally just to see what's going on in the world, of course. But other than that, I don't bother because most of what is being said is all just fear-based energy. So I have no desire to have that in my life. When it comes down to what you're taking in your life, this goes for food, experiences, television, media, social media, conversations, it's everything. You need to start taking a look at where are you labeling yourself? Where are you limiting yourself? Where are you putting yourself in a box? Where are you not aligned anymore? Now, this process can be really, really scary because once we start removing the labels that we identify ourselves with, what are we left with? Well, we're left with us. We're left with our soul. We're left with who we truly are as a pure human being. All of these labels that we put on ourselves are simply just ways of identifying who we are and speaking to who we are. Because we as humans, we need those verbal labels. We need those verbal descriptions. And that's totally fine. It's something that really helps us to understand. The problem is that we hold on to those for a very, very, very long time. And we don't have to. When you are able to remove all the labels, you can bring some of them back if you'd like. You could say, okay, yeah, I'm vegan. And that's something I really stand for. Great. That's something that's really beautiful. But I want you to check in with yourself to make sure that you're still aligned with that. And if you are championing a cause such as cleaning up the oceans or anything like that, I want you to check in with yourself and ask, am I able to do this while still staying in my divinity? And I know that sounds bizarre because, okay, let's say you're helping to clean up the oceans. You're cleaning up beaches. You're doing all this beautiful work. But what if you're neglecting your inner self? What if you're neglecting your person? What if that needs some attention first before you start going out and trying to save the world? Always check in with yourself as to where you are and what capabilities you have, what energy you have to be able to help others or to help a cause. Because that is the first thing that we do when we spiritual bypass, is we start to help others. If we don't want to look at what is going on within ourselves, we go and we try to help others. So try to look within first and identify the places where you need to work on you. And then when you decide to go out there and start helping the world, you will be much more effective. You will be in a much better energy. You will see those people who are fighting each other and screaming at each other and bullying each other. And you will see that they are all just in pain. And you will be able to rise above it. You will be able to not engage. You will be able to send them love and move on. I hope this was super helpful for you. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. Make sure to tune in next week, Wednesday, for a brand new episode. If you're enjoying this podcast, I really would appreciate it if you would give it a like, a thumbs up, wherever you happen to be listening. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss an episode. And if you need to get a hold of me, you can certainly reach me on my website at infinitesoullove.com. You can also reach me on all social media at infinitesoullove1111. That's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. You can find this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple, Pocket Casts, anything that you use to listen to podcasts, you can find the Akashic Recordings. Thank you so much, and don't forget to join us next week.